This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Recently, I saw a news story that featured an innovative way to give both shade and power to open spaces such as parks without minimizing the footprint available to those who use the area. They are called E-Cacias, which are named after the tree found in Africa's savanna. They are made by a renewable energy product developer and manufacturer called Solar Forma Design. Brian Graff is the CEO and co-founder of the company, and he joins us via Zoom from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Hi, Brian.
Peter.
Thanks for being on the program with us, sir. As I said, I caught this story just a little over a week ago, and I found these innovative. Since we're on radio, can you describe how they look and how they came to be in the first place?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We developed the idea after I had worked in the conventional solar industry for about 6 years, and I always came away from projects that we did very pleased with the technical results and the cost savings that we'd achieved. But sometimes solar is unsightly in the settings because it is built primarily on utilitarian designs with very little thought to integrate them into human spaces, and the aesthetics would need to be part of that. And so I started to think about it and was wondering if there was a way that we could marry art with technology and create something that was a little more amenable to human spaces and more complement. And it turns out that there was another entity out there that had been gathering sunlight and turning it into energy for a very long time, about 3.8 billion years, and that was Mother Nature. The acacia tree of Africa is a very iconic symbol of the African savanna and actually is perfectly adapted to doing just that, gathering a lot of sunlight, turning it into energy, yet keeping a very small footprint underneath. These become community gathering points on the savanna, not just people, but also for all species of animals and birds and things like that. So we decided to model our design after that, found a designer that could do it, and made it work.
And for those who haven't ever seen an acacia tree or also have not seen your E-Cacias structures, people, by the way, should go to your website, which is solarformadesign.com, to get a look at how they are. For lack of a better term, they're sort of like giant beach umbrellas, kind of.
Exactly, yeah. Yep, they have very broad canopies, very dense, small leaves that are perfectly adapted to capturing a lot of sunlight, yet they have a very small footprint underneath. Our E-Cacia, our model of the natural model, has a 440 square foot canopy, yet the footprint that it takes is only 36 inches in diameter. And so it's very, very efficient. It allows, as you said in your opening, humans to utilize that space for whatever purpose they want. It casts a lot of shade. It creates a community gathering point, and it's just a very comfortable place to be. It's what landscape architects and urban planners like to call placemaker. It's the kind of structure, it's the kind of element that just makes a place where people want to live, work, play, and learn.
And the most important factor of this is on top of them, there are solar panels. So exactly how does the solar energy, how is it replicated? How is it turned into actual electricity for people?
Well, it's the magic of solar cells, except we use a special PVC-based cell. Each canopy has 708 6x6 solar cells embedded in it. They collect the energy and they just transfer it into what are called inverters and optimizers. And that's where the magic of turning sunlight into electricity takes place. They can be either standalone or they can be grid tied. The power can either be added to the grid, which the owners or the entity is drawing its power needs from, or it can be stored in a separate independent storage system, a big battery, and then drawn upon as needed.
Okay, so again, I saw a news story about this, and it was involving a park. So from that perspective, what was the park using the energy for?
Park is just using it to offset the energy demands that they have for lights, building facilities, that they would have to heat or light in the winter. There's a lot of outdoor lighting there. There's a splash pad that has water coursing through it. So There's a pump system that needs to be charged. That energy that we're creating goes into the grid and just offsets what is being drawn from the grid in a net pricing effect that the park is doing just to run its facilities on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I also saw some people on this news story. I saw some people sitting underneath it, so they were also getting shade. I assume that there is also no danger in sitting under one, correct?
Absolutely not. I mean, all of the things, when you look at most ground-based arrays that cover a certain area, after they put the arrays up, the next thing that they put up is chain link fencing and sometimes barbed wire around it to keep people away. That's because the optimizers and the inverters and everything else that are, again, perform the magic of turning sunlight into electricity are openly accessible to them. We take all of that stuff and we tuck it safely under the canopies of the trees. Also, the cells themselves are unreachable because they're elevated above the populated area, and as a result, people don't come in contact with it, so they're perfectly safe and usable in all human areas.
Now, when I first booked you for doing this interview, I had a little chat with you, and you also mentioned some other things that could be of advantage to this system. For instance, people can sit underneath the canopy so they can get some shade, but there are some places that are very, very hot. You said there could be misters put into it as well, so it has an even greater cooling effect.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're working on a product form right now where we're pairing Mister technology with the trees themselves, and it's a rather easy marriage of those technologies. Misting has been used in the Southwest and in the warmer regions of our country and around the world to provide what's called active cooling in outdoor settings. It's a kind of a natural thing for us to pair these, and the combination of the shade and the misting technology together in the modeling that we've been doing produces what's called a thermal delta, a microclimate under the trees that is 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the surrounding sunlit ambient air. And we're just starting to get those into prototype testing right now, but we're real excited because the opportunity there is immense. There's very few public redesign efforts, whether they're parks, whether they're schoolyards, any kind of outside human area that doesn't need to take shade into consideration and provide adequate shade for the users of that space.
Again, when I saw this feature, I saw not only the beauty of your design, but other applications other than parks and schools. I was immediately thinking of outdoor restaurants that had a seating area. And when I brought that attention to you, you conversed it to another thing that I'm up here in Canada that could be also used, and that is not only could you use them for misters, you could use it for heating, which means ski resorts, for instance, where people can be outdoors having a hot chocolate and not necessarily be cold.
Exactly. We can put radiant electric heaters underneath them. We're experimenting with that as well. That provides, downward focused radiant heat that can, again, create a microclimate under the trees that is quite a few degrees warmer than the outside ambient air. And normally you would view this and you would say, oh, that's really a wasteful use of electricity. But when the sun's shining on the trees, you're producing the electricity essentially free. And so just like cooling would be viewed as potentially wasteful, I remember my dad and my uncle always yelling at me to close the door when the air conditioning was on before I'd even opened the door. But when you look at it, the more sunlight that is hitting those panels, the more electricity that they're producing, and the more that we have to use to employ to make people comfortable and make these spaces usable, even in the hottest of the extreme heat events that we're experiencing.
I just thought of another idea. You live in Wisconsin. There are cold weather cities that play football. The Green Bay Packers, they always have heaters outside. What if they had these also?
They could potentially. There's an awful lot of people that attend the Green Bay Packer games, so I don't know that we could put enough trees up to shelter everybody. And
I'm not thinking about the fans. I'm thinking about the heaters that they have for the players on the benches, for instance.
It's an interesting idea. Well, I'm only about 2.5 hours from Green Bay, so next time I'm there, I'll present the idea to the Packers management and see what they think.
Admittedly, there's a certain cost to this, so it's not something that somebody's going to have in their patio in the backyard, but it's something that corporations, businesses, governments could have in public areas. There is, of course, a savings to this because of the solar electricity that they garner from this, but there is a cost to this, right?
There is. And we don't pretend to be or claim to be the cheapest form of solar on the market. The solar economy, if you will, is built upon almost a single metric, and that is ROI. At what point does my investment in the solar infrastructure I'm putting on my building or in my yard or at my home or wherever it might be, at what point does it negate the need to write a check to the electric company every month for my electricity usage? So where does it break even? We have a little different, our measure is not solely on the value of it, because the value of functional art, the value of elements of interest in human spaces, the value of creating gathering places, the light that we create, the Wi-Fi connectivity that we can generate, all of that stuff becomes part of it. And I kind of equate it to, if you looked at how people buy cars, if the only thing that mattered was miles per gallon when people buy a car, then we'd probably all be driving Toyota Priuses and you would see very few other cars on the road. But that's not true. We all have different lifestyle needs. We all have to match our cars to the kind of things that we like, our activities in life, our family situations, whatever it might be. There's an awful lot of Toyota Priuses and other high mileage cars on the roads, but it isn't the sole reason that people go and select one car over another. Miles per gallon is one thing, as in solar, ROI is another. But the introduction of design, the ability to integrate this into people's lives and have it be something that produces green ethos is proving to be pretty important to people as well.
Very last question. When I talked to you earlier, you brought up a great analogy about how solar power is going forward in your design when you compared it to Edison's light bulb.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite metaphors or comparables, if you will. If the lighting industry had stopped innovating when Edison came up with his very first incandescent bulb that was hanging from a relatively austere wire hanging from a ceiling, and he flicked the switch on, and this newfound energy source called electricity was brought to bear, and that light bulb lit up the room, and it lit it up better than any candle, any lantern, even any of the gas lights of the time. And then our design and our innovation around that technology had simply stopped. We said, good enough, it's lighting the room, we're going to stop innovating, we're going to pay no attention to design. The functionality of that light migrated and became accepted to a point where now they said, hey, we can innovate around this. We can make this more interesting in our environments. This can be an element of not only illumination, but of design and mood and territory development or character development within a given space. We think solar can do that as well. And that's kind of the thought process that we're bringing it to. We look at telephones and cell phones the very same way. They migrated from being nifty innovations that were built primarily on utility to now something that has style, character, and adds multiple dimensions to our lives.
Brian, it's an amazing product that you have out. I hope people get a chance to see it and also experience it. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Quite welcome, Peter. Thank you so much.
Brian Graff, the CEO and co-founder of Solar Forma Design, the makers of the E-Cacias solar-powered unit. You can go to our website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0827, and you'll find the link to their website, which I urge you to do if only to see not only how these units work, but also how beautiful they are.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.